Rose Petals Chapter 8. Akira awoke to the smell of an early morning breakfast that Hiroaki had prepared. It was Tuesday and time for him to be whisked away to school. Being the youngest member, he still had to attend high school 2 days out of the week, when they were back from tours and traveling. He could of course be tutored at home, but that would break up the flow of who and when someone was entering into the hotel. Mr. Shima could probably do a tight security schedule, but he did not want to take the chance like before with the security guards. Mr. Shima had picked Tuesdays and Thursdays to give him time to study and was sure it would not interfere with his idle schedule. Akira won't be burdened by classes and his classmates won't be burdened by him. Being a high school idol was more complex than one would have thought. Usually Hiroaki and a service car dropped him off and picked him up. But today he had to complete the new set of tracks for their up-and-coming album. Yakudo would take him instead, on his trusty motorbike, and pick him up a few hours early. It would be easier for them to dive in and out of traffic, unlike a service car. Yakudo had a very high fan base that consisted mainly of freshman girls. Hideo had told him that it was only because freshman year was a time of confusion and uncertainty. If it wasn't for them, he probably wouldn't receive any fans' mails, except from addicts and lunatics. Yakudo just smiled back and said, "Every fan counts." As the motorbike pulled up to the school, a group of freshman girls were already waiting on the lawn. They knew that Seven had recently came back from overseas, and had lined up with banners, confettis and of course, screams. They immediately started screaming and running towards the parking lot, with their phones out, light flashing and arms waving. The older group of girls, who at first were unaware of what was going to perspire, followed with their stampede. "They're probably freshmen," Akira thought as he hopped off the bike. He fastened the extra pair of helmet back onto the latch. Lucky for them, the school was well prepared with security and the area already roped off. "You gonna be alright, your first day back?" Yakudo asked, as he adjusted his helmet. "Yeah. Security seems pretty tight." He waved goodbye to him and was led to the back entrance by another set of security. School wasn't normal for Akira. Most teenagers didn't deal with the type of pressure that came with fame. He had no friends and no enemies for that matter. No one came near him to converse or even to bully him. Everyone kept their distance, lovers and haters. He can hear the whispers that came along with admiration or just flat-out jealousy. Or see their gaze as he walked down the hallway. It seemed like every head turned when he made a move. His admirers would smile at him with almost teary eyes, while his enemies wore frowns, or wouldn't attempt to look up at him out of sheer malice. Deep down inside, they could only wish that the shoes were on the other feet. With their lack of talent, that was a definite impossibility. Mr. Shima had hired a bodyguard to follow Akira around school. At first he protested, but it only fell on deaf ears. He had made a deal that if the guard was to follow him everywhere, at least let him keep a 7 feet distance. He can stand outside his classroom instead of sitting next to him, with dark shades and a dark suit. He was supposed to be incognito, but ended up sticking out like one of those FBI guys sent to investigate abductions. There were a set of 40 rules at high school. First being always be in uniform, the last, no pestering idols, especially Akira. This was written in bold massive letters with parentheses, and highlighted in neon yellow. Akira felt it was the reason for his dismay, along with the men in black type bodyguard, and spent the school days alone and ignored. The teachers were afraid to approach him and ask him questions. One teacher made the mistake of handing Akira his art project back, instead of leaving it in the designated area, assigned to drop off any of Akira's assignments. To be fair, he was substituting and didn't know any of the rules. He loved the oil painting that Akira had done and wanted to ask him if he could put it in a gallery. Before he could approach the startled Akira, for no one had dared to come this close, he was grabbed into a bear hug and was body slammed onto the hardwood floors, suplex style. The substitute's body was jerking severely, so he was quickly rushed to a nearby hospital. In bringing in a new substitute, the principal took the time to explain all the rules, instead of just handing him the handbook. Because this made such a devastating impact on the students and Akira himself, Mr. Shima had no choice but to dismiss the bodyguard. Still, everyone remained distant. And so to say, poor Akira never read anything out loud and never solved any equation on the board. There was another occasion when he saw a freshman being bullied by some seniors who he thought should have already graduated. He walked towards them and called them out, insisting that they leave the shaking boy alone. Realizing it was Akira, they ignored him as if he didn't exist. "Hey! Leave him be," I said. After ignoring him the first few times, the ringleader gave the boy one last punch to his stomach, while the others shoved him against the lockers and walked off, without even a glance at Akira. He ran to see if the guy was okay, but was also ignored by him. He quickly got up to brush himself off, refusing to take any help from him, fear of being suspended for rule number 40, gathered his books and limped away holding his stomach. Not even a thank you or any display of gratitude. Akira thought to himself, school is such a drag. When lunchtime came around, he had to dodge past the front office, in fear of running into the principal. You would think that the one who made all these rules, and even posted them, would have no problem adhering to them. All rules were implemented except rule number 40. Principal Oe would pester Akira for autographs or ask him to pose for photos to give to his many children and relatives. On days when the school was giving prospective students and their parents a tour, he would tell them that idols went to the school, even though Akira was the first and only one. He would find out which class Akira was in for that period, and guide his tourist to his location. Mothers and daughters would scream and faint, while fathers and sons would applaud and shake their heads in approval. How cool it would be to sit in class next to an idol. Yes, he was the school's first living mascot and most likely the last idol to attend High and High. Nothing before was distinctive about the school until he attended. The school was graded one of the poorest in academics compared to the high standards in the country. Still, it was given extra funds than most because their population was soaring, and both government and private companies were willing to invest. Parents, students and faculties were happy at this, using the money to buy better equipment and extra activities for the students. At board meetings, they would plot and plan a way to keep Akira there forever. They couldn't flunk him at any academics, he was too smart. They couldn't fail him in any extracurricular activities, he was both athletic and creative. With this in mind, they could only erect a memorial image of him so that everyone would know Akira was here. Akira walked outside with his bento box, which Hiroaki had packed earlier for him. He would sit under the same tree, in the same spot, facing away from the same school. The cherry blossoms were starting to bloom and the scent of it, with the cool breeze made it relaxing. This was his place of serenity, away from all the madness of students, faculties, and that crazy principal. As the tree came into view, he saw that someone had already invaded his territory. She was not dressed in uniform and stood with her head looking up towards the sky. As he approached her, she spoke softly. "I wonder if those are rain clouds. What do you think?" She turned and looked at him. He shrugged, surprised that she had said anything to him. Then again, she was dressed unusually. She probably came from another school, and this was her first day. He didn't know faces at all, and could never remember if he had seen her around and about. But her lack of uniform could only mean transfer. She turned to him and smiled. "Hi. I'm transfer student, Nakamura Takara." Akira bowed. "Sama Akira." He looked up at her. Did she not know he was an idol? She reached her hand out to shake his. She was definitely foreign. She didn't bow when he had approached her. But her name means she was no doubt Japanese. He shook her hands. "Where did you transfer from?" "The city." She looked away, wrapping her arms around herself as she felt a gust of wind. Even though it was near spring, the air was still cool. She was suddenly silent. Perhaps she was thinking of her friends and her old life. "What city?" He braced himself on the tree and opened his lunch. "New York." He had guessed it. She was indeed international. From her looks he thought, London or somewhere in America. Her accent was a dead giveaway after she introduced herself. She didn't sound like someone that would say bloody hell or hello mate. He looked her over before he took a bite. By the look at the small fossil watch she wore, she came from money. He took another bite and sighed at the silence between them. She probably didn't bring any lunch. He was too hungry to offer his, but didn't want to seem rude. She watched as he continued to eat, refusing to pause between bites. Man, Hiroaki surely can cook, he thought. He looked up at her. Why is she still here? It's already bad enough. I'm sharing my spot with her, must it be my food too? He closed the lid, after a long sigh, and offered his box. Thank you, but I ate before I registered. Thanks be to God, he said, and opened his box to continue devouring his meal.